What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Dairyland Drive. Colin Tilbert along, always with Riley Ashe and Mike Schneider. Boys, we have a national champion in college basketball. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. The NFL draft about 2 weeks away, a little over 2 weeks away. We're going to look at the defensive side of the ball. This episode, talk a little bit what the Packers might look at on that side, some prospects. And then the Masters. We're going to preview a little bit on that. Our final drive rankings are going to be related to that as well. So that's how we'll wrap up the show. But boys, how was your weekend, the start of your week? Like I said, national championship last night, that we'll get into, but how have things been going?
Colin, I'm great. Our pick, I think we all picked Florida to win the national championship. Ended up taking her home last night. And March Madness is now wrapped up, which means that it is officially one of my favorite weeks of the year. It is Masters Week, starting out tonight with the Champions Dinner, leading tomorrow's R3 contest, and then the show gets underway on Thursday. I can't wait.
Yeah, same here. Good weekend. Saturday's games were awesome, both games. Sunday was pretty chill. Last night's game was, as a secondary Florida fan, it was kind of up and down, but I'll take the result.
Riley repping the Florida Gators shirt for tonight's episode, so repping that. But yeah, let's jump right into it. For the first time since 2007, when Billy Donovan and the Gators won back-to-back titles, Florida is on top of the college basketball world, 65-63. Kind of a typical Florida win, what the NCAA tournament was for them. 4 comeback wins in six tourney games. They were down by as much as, I think, 12 or 13 at different parts. Houston really dragged them down to the mud. I think that's a term that Mike used a couple weeks ago to talk about Houston, and that was exactly what Houston did there in the first half. Florida couldn't do anything. Finally got going in their second half. I know Walter Clayton finally found some spots, hit some shots. Weird ending. Manuel Sharp, nice little pin down action for him. Thought was going to be an open look, but didn't even get a shot off. And Florida ends up winning it. So we'll just start with you, Mike. Just overall thoughts. Like you said, all three of us before the tournament started picked Florida to win. And they did. It wasn't pretty at times, but they found ways to win. So just your overall thoughts on them being crowned national champions.
Yeah, I think the 3 games this weekend are kind of what we all hope for when it comes to March Madness. All close games, all coming down to the wire. Especially last night's game, I think, kind of encapsulates what kind of draws all of us to sports and competition. Houston controlling that game for 38 minutes and 57 seconds, being in the lead or tied, and then just all of a sudden, like that, it can just flip, and all of a sudden it's over, and you're the one that's crumbling to the floor, and the confetti is blue and orange instead of red and black. And I think that's just something that shows how sports, it can be so jovial on one side and so maddening and heartbreaking on the other side. Just these beautiful perspectives that sports gives us. It's what draws us in.
Yeah, I agree. My takeaway probably was just credit to Houston because they were by far the least talented of those 4 teams that we watched this weekend. It's just their style, their identity. They just drag you into the mud, kind of like we talked about. I don't know. It was a rough game to watch. I was, as a Florida fan, I'm happy they won, but like Saturday's game was so much more exciting. Walter Clayton finally had his game. We kind of projected last week he'd be in the championship game against Duke, but it happened against Auburn. He went off. He's a stud. I don't know how he's not lottery guy, but nobody still has him up there in the mock drafts that I've seen. I don't get it. I don't get the NBA. I don't know. I think even the Florida won. As a Florida fan, the refs pissed me off so much yesterday, especially in the second half. Like the first, Florida had 5 fouls in the first 2 minutes of the second half, whatever. And then literally Houston had 10 fouls in the next 7 minutes. At one time, it was 3 fouls in 9 seconds. And like they didn't change anything. It was the same way they played in the first half. So as a Florida fan, I will admit that Houston probably got fucked because they did not change style of play. The refs just decided they weren't going to let them play that way anymore for apps. I have no idea why. It was just complete random. And then going back to the Florida game on Saturday, we were in our group chat. The refs sucked. Florida won that game, but they got fucked so many times on Saturday. Just random stuff. The refing was bad. So I hate that being my takeaway, even was a Florida fan of them winning, but it was rough yesterday to watch a flow because there was no consistency. I was really interested to see if Florida was going to figure out a way to fight through that physicality, but the refs kind of bailed them out and let them shoot free throws to get back into it.
Yeah, and I think to me that's, and just kind of reading up into it, was Florida was planning on they had to be physical, and I think that's just how they tried to play. They tried to play to like Houston's style, and I think Houston just dictated that entire tempo and just like the flow of the game in the first half. And like you said, the refs did kind of let a lot of things go, and for some reason, yeah, what were both teams were in the bonus with 10 plus minutes left, which didn't turn into a huge free throw shooting contest like some of those games get into. But yeah, it was still just like the flow was just cut up. But yeah, Florida just seemed a little bit more free flowing in the second half. It was just crazy how Walter Clayton had no space. How good of a job that just as a team Houston did defending him. And I just think that speaks to their athletes. Like 1 through 5, they can guard anyone on the court. And that was just apparent of they switch everything, and Walter Clayton had zero space. And then finally there in those final 5 to 6 minutes, he did find a little bit of space, hit a three, a couple of drives. But yeah, you just kind of thought Florida, just from an outside perspective, you're like, they're going to make a run. They're going to make a run. When's it going to happen? Houston's not going to stay up by 10. They just kept chipping away. And yeah, I want to talk about that last play a little bit because Houston was going for the win. That thing was drawn up out of bounds. Kelvin Sampson had, I think, a decent play. I don't know if Manuel Sharp's the guy that I would probably want shooting when you have LJ Cryer on that team, and how well he played in the tournament. But they were going for the win. I think that was pretty apparent of trying to draw up a three. Have we seen like a finish like that before? I'm trying to remember where you just don't even get a shot off, and it's like a not trying to travel. He's boxing guys out to not not touch the ball, but not let anybody else touch the ball, and then time just expires. That was just a weird ass finish, but it was a good finish. But then in the same sense, it was like, oh heck, that's how it's gonna end. Like I was expecting at least a shot attempt or something crazy. But what did you just kind of think of that finish, and kind of how that whole play just went out?
I wasn't a fan of the play at all. In that situation, you're down two, and you have last possession. Take it to the hoop. Try to draw a foul. Get a kick out. If anything, if you miss, I mean, your team is so strong at offensive rebounding. Your guys can get an offensive rebound at the bucket. I will, in that situation, always advocate for going to the hoop first instead of going for the three.
Yeah, I do agree with Mike, but at the same time, I get why that's the route they went with the foul trouble they were in. They already had one starter fouled out. Florida obviously had a majority of the momentum probably, so I get where he was coming from, just trying to end it there. Probably didn't think they had much of a chance with all that piling up on him going into overtime. But if the screener just would have actually set a better screen, he just whiffed on Walter Clayton. Because if you watch it, Walter Clayton fell asleep for about a second down there. He was really late coming up. He fell asleep down there, and then that was just the one time all game Houston decided to set the shittiest pick of the game. So just missed, and he closed out.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that he went to Sharp, unless that's just kind of how the play played out. And before the play like played out like it did, I was thinking there ain't no way that LJ Cryer isn't taking this shot. Just with he was really a big part of that offense, like a majority of the game, but in the second half. But I think Florida kind of knew that as well. But I think my big takeaway is how big of an emphasis there is on offense nowadays in college basketball. I think you can still see that defense is pretty important. Florida, if they didn't start getting stops, and yes, I know Houston isn't the most explosive offensive team, but if Florida doesn't turn it up in the second half on the defensive end and they strung some multiple stops together at multiple points, like I don't think they were getting back into it. And obviously Houston, what they did just in their entire run, I think that yes, you have to score points, but you also have to be able to stop people, and I do think that's why Florida did win. I think they made stops when they needed to, and Houston kind of, I don't want to say totally fell asleep at the end, but those last 7 or 8 minutes, it just, yes, the foul trouble hurt, but they just weren't as maybe the intensity. And yes, I know it was kind of the physicality and the refs calling things, but it just seems like their defense just kind of fell off a little bit, maybe compared to Florida's. But I do think the best team in the country. Yes, I know Duke was playing really well. That's another game we could talk about. But I do think Florida was probably start of the year to the end of the year the best team in the country. And yes, if Walter Clayton doesn't get drafted in the first round, I just think he just fits the NBA. I don't know if it's his size, his diva. I don't know what the heck. I'm taking a flyer at him if I'm at the back end of the first round. Like I don't see why not. But any closing thoughts before we move over to football?
Uh, I do feel a little bit for Kelvin Sampson. I mean, this guy's been chasing this goal for, I mean, essentially his whole life, and he's within spitting distance of achieving it. And Saturday night, he's on the side where his team is down pretty much all game, and they make this just flurry to end the game and take it to the national championship, and then just this cruel reversal of roles on Monday night in the championship.
I don't know where Florida goes next year because they are losing their entire roster pretty much. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, and Houston, I think Houston's got, like, if not the top recruiting class, one of the top recruiting class. They have like 3 top 20 guys coming in, and who knows now that they did make a national championship game, the transfer portal. So I would not be surprised if they're right back at that point, at that level. But yeah, wraps up college basketball. Yeah, I think kind of a chalky tournament, but I do think, like you said, I think we had a really good weekend with 2 good semifinals in the championship to kind of put a cap on that for the 24-25 college basketball season. All right, well, let's go to the gridiron. The NFL draft is just about 2 weeks away, a little over 2 weeks away. Last week we talked offensive prospects. Mainly wide receiver, offensive line, a few sleepers of what the Packers might look at. This week, we're going the other side of the ball. Jeff Hafley and his defense coming off a major improvement from the Joe Barry era, and a top 10 defense that still, I think, underperformed in a lot of areas, but statistically and overall had a really good season, but yet they find themselves again, where maybe some of the biggest needs of this team is on the defensive side of the ball somehow. So we're going to jump right into it. I want to start in the defensive back, specifically at corner, because I think this is a very interesting position. You just brought in Nate Hobbs. You have Keyshawn Nixon coming back, Carrington Valentine. Jair Alexander still on the roster. I know talked the last couple of weeks what the heck's going to happen with that. Is he going to remain on the team? Is he not? But I think this could be interesting if they add. I do think they add at this spot, but when do they add? Do they try to add a guy that can make an impact day one, or is it just maybe a depth special teams guy? I would say outside of Travis Hunter, if he decides to play receiver, corner, whatever direction he goes, I would like to think a lot of these guys could potentially be on the table in the teens and early 20s. So we'll kind of get into who some of your favorite cornerback prospects are. I think it's intriguing because I think Packers have a pretty like hard criteria of what they look in for a corner. Just like you look at their history. Usually it's 5'11" or taller, 190 plus pounds. They like the speed, the 4.4, 4.5, good vertical, broad jump, good 3-cone shuttle times. RAS, I know we talk about that all the time, usually an 8.0 or up. There is a list of guys I think that meet a lot of that criteria, so I'm interested to hear your guys' take. We'll start with Riley. You can go maybe who you like the most, who you think the Packers might like the most, if anyone fits all those criteria. But if you look at cornerback room sitting there at 23, who is one guy that you would love to have that could make this defense better day one?
Like you said, Travis Hunter is obviously going to be gone. I think the number one corner outside of him is Will Johnson, and I think he'll be gone. The injury concerns from last year, but then he had just announced this morning or came out this morning he's having like a mini little pro day this weekend. So if he's doing that, that means he's obviously confident. He's going to show the scouts that he's fine. So I would assume he'll be gone. So my immediate after that, with those two being gone in my head, I'm going to jump to Jade Barron from Texas. I just think he's all around just the best of what's going to be left. Man, zone. He's got an attitude. If you just you go back to the playoff game against Georgia, and I know Georgia didn't really have a quarterback that game, and receivers are question marks, but he just dominated. And then obviously just playing in the SEC all year, he faced a lot of good receivers, and he always stuck out. So to me, man or zone, I think he by far is the guy. I think it'll be interesting just based on the type of corner they do draft, to see how they feel about their pass rush. Because you have, I don't know if either of you guys are going to talk about him. There's that Shavon Revel guy from ECU, which is a 6'3", long, gangly, pure man-to-man corner. They take a guy like him, that means they think their pass rush is going to get home. But if it's going to be like last year and their pass rush is going to suck, and they're going to have to play a lot of zone, they're going to go the Barron route probably, or a Maxwell Hairston, which asked this guy in the combine, but he's actually a stud zone defender. He jumps everything really well. So Barron's my number one guy who I think will actually be there, who I'd want them to take, but I think it'll be interesting to see how those guys, if who's sitting there, which route they go, and if they're going to try to be a man team, if they're going to try to be a zone team going forward.
Yeah, I actually had Jade Barron down as my top corner as well, Riley, because I also felt that Will Johnson and obviously Travis Hunter are going to be gone. So my next corner on my list was Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. He was a second team All American last year. He's 6'1", 195. In high school, I found this interesting. He had a long jump of 22 feet and 9 3/4 inches. So super explosive player, meaning he'll break on routes, jump routes super quickly. Um, and to clarify, most of this I haven't really watched any Ole Miss tape or games from last year, so I'm purely going by what I've read about this guy. Um, and he's rarely fooled by a lot of route combinations. So super smart player. He's got great recovery speed when he's beaten, and he'll take efficient angles to make up that ground when he is beat. A couple of things that go against him are that his physicality and hand grabbing could possibly lead to uh, some penalties in the league. And Riley kind of made this point just now with Jade Barron about how um, Trey Amos is kind of projected currently as being a better man corner than zone corner. So if, like Riley said, if they think that their pass rush can get home, then he might be an option right away out of the gate. If not, then maybe he's not. If they feel they need to sit in zone more.
Yeah, and I think they both kind of meet that threshold that the Packers typically draft. You talk about Amos, 6'1", 195, 4'3". So just, the size, weight, speed, athleticism, that definitely fits. And he was pretty productive for the most part in college, 50 tackles, 3 picks. But yeah, Jade Barron, I think checks pretty much every box that I kind of mentioned. 5'11", 194. 4.39 at the combine, 150, 10-yard split, which is obviously very important for a corner. Just talking about that change of direction and that explosiveness. 35-inch vertical, that must be nice. Anything above 30 is good in my eyes. I don't even know what I hit at my peak in high school. It certainly wasn't that
36.
high. I don't know about 36. 9.00 RAS. So this dude's an elite athlete. Great tackler. 5 picks, 67 tackles last year, All-American. So I've seen him in a lot of mock drafts as well. I think he would be a great fit. I just think it's like you said, it's interesting of the direction they do go at corner. And I do think a lot of it has to do with Jair Alexander too. And I know we keep beating a dead horse of is he or is he not going to be back? It's just weirder and weirder as it just keeps dragging along. Like we're getting closer to the draft, makes me think that in my mind they're either going to release him or he's going to be on the roster. If he's on the roster, I don't think they go corner day 1, day 2, probably more of a depth guy day 3 in the later rounds. Yeah, you mentioned Will Johnson. I agree. I don't think he's going to be there. I think he's going to be a top 15 guy, especially if he does go through this workout you talked about. Maxwell Harrison is another guy that we've seen 5'11", 183. So a little below the weight of typically that threshold, but like Riley mentioned, the dude is just a burner. A 4.28, 39.5-inch vertical. That's even more than 35. 9.71 RAS score, so he's an elite athlete. Want to hear your takes? Maybe another guy that I read. I'm gonna say his name wrong, but Azarie Thomas from Florida State. Any thoughts on him? I think I've seen him mocked in the first round at the back end, 6'2", 197. So bigger corner, 4.47, long, lengthy. It kind of goes with what Riley said. If you want to kind of go that route, any thoughts on him?
I think he's a solid day 2 guy. If you want to get him in the second round, probably he would fall. His last year wasn't as good as obviously Florida State just was not a good football team. His best year was the year before. That's when they had the stud pass rushes they did that the Rams took, Fisk and what's the defensive end's
Jared
name?
Verse.
Yeah, Jared Verse. They had them. So they're going to make any corner playing man look very good, obviously. So that was his most productive year. But he's a solid. He's a second round guy. But yeah, he's a man corner.
Mike, we'll go back to you. Any other corners that we haven't mentioned yet that you could see them maybe picking in the first or second round, or any sleepers that we'll kind of just keep going off of the cornerback room that you like or have your eyes on?
Yeah, I've got a sleeper that could be like possibly a mid-round selection. Darian Porter out of Iowa State, 6'3", 195, so he's quite large for a corner. A couple interesting things about him. He ran a 46.99 400-meter dash in high school, set the Iowa record, state record for the 400. So long strides, just can fly. Excuse me. He originally came to Iowa State as a wide receiver, but he transitioned to corner in 2022. So those wide receiver skills do give him some exceptional ball tracking skills. And his length also allowed him to play on special teams where he had 5 blocked kicks in his time at Iowa State. So if anything, he could be a special teams contributor on day 1 if he's a mid-round selection. Couple other notes I had on him were that his advanced instincts in zone coverage allows him to use the sideline as an extra defender. Not so much very, what am I trying to say? He's not too skilled yet in the man coverage area. And that size will allow him to make up some ground, though. Those long strides at 6'3". Another kind of knock on him possibly would that be, he will be 25 coming into his rookie season here. So a little bit older player. So maybe that might knock him off Packers draft board, but never know.
Yeah, the 6 year senior, I believe was in this last year. Yeah, I think he's interesting. I had him down as well as possibly a day 2 or day 3 guy. I think just as a pure athlete, I think he fits a lot of things that the Packers look for. You mentioned the special teams contributions. I think that could be, maybe a project where you maybe look at maybe what he can be in a couple years as he gets more and more snaps. But I think he could be a special teams contributor. Yeah, 4.30 at the combine. That was the third fastest of any position. So dude's got speed, 9.99 RAS. So elite athlete, great length. PFF said 5 of 17 for 70 yards and 203 coverage snaps against him this past year, which is pretty good. So I think this is a guy, if you do draft him, I think you look at his potential. And I think Goody has gone that route a couple times as he looks at what a guy can be, maybe not the production in college. Cough, cough, Lucas Van Ness, potentially just recently in years. But I do think this is a guy that I think the Packers, I would not be surprised if they took a flyer on him because, like I said, I think he's got that length and he's got the speed and he's got a lot of potential. I just don't. Yeah, is he a day one starter at corner? Probably not. But I think he could just work his way in into that room and carve out a role at in that day two or day three. So, real quick before we go back to Riley, one more sleeper that I did have at corner, Caleb Ransaw from Tulane. I think he could be a day two or day three guy. 5'11", 196. Fits almost every single athletic profile for a Packers corner. 4'3", 340, 40-inch vertical, 9.96 RAS, so an elite athlete. The college production, not there, but I think he's one of those guys that the Packers could take a flyer on and be like a good depth piece, and I would not be surprised if he's someone that they would maybe target in the third or fourth round. But we'll go back to Riley. Any other corner prospects in those first couple rounds or mid-round or late-round sleepers before we move to the trenches?
Well, the Packers themselves actually ruined my sleeper because, like, I was at the gym at like 6 o'clock and came out that he was on a visit today or whatever tomorrow. But Jason Marshall from Florida, just stick with my Homer, Florida guys. He was a stud as a freshman and sophomore. He was getting projected as like a first round pick going out, but that's when he actually had a pass rush. Brenton Cox, who the Packers have now, that's when he was at Florida. So when he had a pass rush, he was good. Played man, played zone. He'll tackle. Stayed all 4 years. Obviously, Florida has not been as good of late the last couple of years, so just production went down. He's coming off an injury, so he's probably gonna fall into that third or fourth round. But as a freshman, he was talked about as going to be one of the best corners in the country for the foreseeable future. So a lot of people are high on him, and obviously the Packers are bringing him in for a visit, so they want to get to know a little bit more about him.
All right, so we'll kind of segue into the trenches. I want to save edge for last because I think that might be the most intriguing. So we'll start on the interior at defensive tackle. And a guy that we have seen a lot of in mock drafts, and it has a lot of smoke. Potentially, the Packers being interested is Derek Harmon out of Oregon. So I don't know if either one of you wants to talk about Harmon. I have seen him in a ton of mock drafts for the Packers, looking at him of 23 just with his fit and how he is as a pass rusher. So maybe we'll start with Mike this time. Derek Harmon, thoughts on him when you looked at him and research? I'm assuming he was probably towards the top of your list. What would you kind of see at Derek Harmon?
Yeah, he was towards the top. I won't say that he was the choice for me, but I wouldn't be mad if they selected him. 6'4", 313 pounds. As a senior, he had 5 sacks, 8.5 tackles for loss, and 39 quarterback hurries. Um, so what I've read about him is he's got a litany of moves to help him win against different types of blocks up front. He processes and diagnoses plays quickly and has great spatial awareness to beat blockers to the spot. He's got an explosive first step to help him fit and Halfley's kind of get up the field kind of style of defense. Uh, One thing that I did read about him was that he was at Michigan State those 3 years, I believe. He went to Oregon and he hadn't really put a lot out there in Michigan, and then he just kind of had this 1 year at Oregon. So it's just kind of a question of, is this kind of a 1 year wonder, or is he this kind of like the next step in his uh, progression?
Yeah, it's the I mean, he had 5 or 6 sacks this year, but yeah, the lack of production over his career is kind of questionable to me. But he was crazy this year. Obviously, he fits the penetration style. I think I would lean. I want him to take a no as a bigger guy, a one tech. I think Harmon, Walter Nolan, a three tech disruptive, but like that's what Devontae Wyatt's for, and I think I think you have to let him play it out this year to see if you're going to give him that 5th year option going to that. So I think I would lean, who I want them to take if they're going to go interior would be Kenneth Grant from Michigan, 6'4", 330, absolute run stuffer. They just lost Slayton. Kenny Clark, the Packers. This is Kenny Clark's last contract as a Packer. That's just what the Packers do. They're not going to re-sign him again. They don't go that old, so they need to figure out who their one tech of the future is going to be. And Kenny Clark's last year and probably forever was last year. So just a guy that also showed promise in the pass rush. Do you think he had 3 sacks last year, which at 330 is kind of insane? It's just all raw ability, not really taught anything, and he's kind of admitted that in interviews that he just kind of just goes. He just doesn't have moves, so it makes you wonder what he could tap into. So Kenneth Grant to me out of Michigan is by far my number one. But yeah, Derek Harmon's right there. I'd be fine with that if they're just gonna they just want to go full penetration. Then Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. I don't know if either of you guys are going to talk about him, but he showed great athleticism for being a 300 plus pounder as well.
Riley, can I just ask real quick, what's the difference between a one tech and a three tech?
So one tech would be playing probably outside shade of the center or just in the gap between center and guard. Some teams play outside half of the center, some play inside half of the guard. I don't know what the Packers do. I haven't studied it that closely. And then the three tech would be like your Aaron Donald, where you're in between guard and tackle, and just trying to shoot the gap. Sometimes you line up head up on the tackle in pass rush situations. If you're going those wide nines, which is what Athlete did show a couple of times last year, but their pass rush sucks, so he never really got back to it. But early in the year, they were going wide nines and almost four techs, which would be head up on tackles and just pass rush, but they couldn't do it.
Yeah, I'd have to agree on Kenneth Grant too, and I think this is intriguing as well because you look at what your current roster is, and you kind of mentioned, Carl Brooks. You just mentioned Devontae Wyatt, kind of those guys that you do bring in situationally. I don't think they're 3 down guys that you would think would be able to bring some pressure inside. Kenny Clark, we don't really know what he's got left in the tank, so. Do you bring in a guy that can play with Kenny Clark that you maybe want to bring pressure on the inside, or do you want to bring someone like a TJ Slayton that is kind of that potentially plays 3 downs and run stopper and play on the inside? I think Kenneth Grant is more that. Um, he's very good against the run. I think he's got a lot of pass rush upside, like Riley talked about. 3 sacks, 6.5 tackles for loss, and he's only 21 years old, which is just screams Packers. Packers like drafting at that age and really developing on their own. Yeah, I think he's a really good athlete, and I do think he's still got a lot more potential to get to. But yeah, going back to Harmon, I think, like you mentioned, if you're going to really put a lot of emphasis at wherever pressure is, I don't care. It just needs to come from somewhere. I think Harmon is an elite pass rusher from the inside. If you just kind of watch his tape, he just wins. He simply just wins. He had 5 sacks and 55 pressures, which 11 more pressures than any other defensive lineman in the country last year. He just knows how to beat guys on the interior, and those are centers and guards, and able to create penetration. So I think he's probably the best outside of maybe some of those top dogs. He's probably the best interior pass rusher. I've seen like Cam Hayward kind of as a comparison for him, which if that is kind of his trajectory, I would gladly would take that. And yeah, Walter Nolan again. I don't know if Mike, you want to touch on or any other prospects. I think Walter Nolan is definitely intriguing as well. Like, dude was a 5-star recruit out of high school. I know a lot of these guys are, but he was like the 2nd overall recruit. So like the talent is obviously there. 6'4", 315, All-American, All SEC. He had great production in college. He's played on the inside and the 3 and 5. A good burst and quickness. Pretty powerful. So I think there's some good selections. I'm just intrigued to see what direction they do go. If you do want to get that beefy run stopper, or you want to just, like Riley mentioned, a guy that is just going to get after the quarterback. So one guy I just kind of wanted to bring up, then I'll let it over to Mike. If you want to go beefy, Deion Walker out of Kentucky. 6'6", 348. The guy is an absolute unit. 36 career starts, some up and down production, but I think if you look at someone to maybe fill that TJ Slayton role, with a little bit of, pass rush upside potential. This guy's just going to eat double teams down there. I think he could be like a day 2, day 3 guy, so maybe a third, fourth, fifth rounder. Just someone that I mentioned or just saw, just purely from the size. I think that could potentially be a guy in the later rounds. But we'll go to you, Mike. Any other interior guys before we get to the edge that you wanted to touch on or add on the guys that we've talked about?
Yeah, I agree with Riley 100% on Kenneth Grant. As a realistic, probably prospect for where they're picking, I would say he would be number one if he's there. My true overall number one draft crush is Mason Graham, also out of Michigan, but I don't think there's any way he's getting to the Packers unless they trade the farm and trade up for him, which I absolutely don't see happening just because of the depth of linemen in this class. So yeah, totally in on Kenneth Grant. Going back to Walter Nolan, a couple other things. He was at the Senior Bowl. We know how the Packers love their Senior Bowl guys. A couple other things I've read up on him is that he can line anywhere in the interior, and he's another one of those guys that kind of projects as one gap, get up the field defender, which is what Heffley likes to do. Um, one guy that I did just write down just kind of for fun was Desmond Watson. I think his name, yeah, Desmond Watson out of Florida. I just like him just because of his sheer size. You just brought up a guy, Colin. This guy, Desmond Watson, he's 6'6", 464 pounds. I just think it would be fun if they brought him in as like an undrafted free agent. Just because of how massive he is, he would make the other linemen look tiny. Um, but realistically, for him to play in the NFL, he would probably need to shed probably 40, 50 pounds at least. Um, and I don't really know how realistic that is because every year that he's been at Florida, he's put on weight. So he would need a very specialized, regimented training program, diet program, what have you. Um, but yeah, that was kind of what I had.
The only guy I have to add my sleeper, which would he's a late or a middle round guy, would be C.J. West out of Indiana. He transferred to Indiana this year. Um, Played in the MAC the first 3 years, but this year his stats aren't crazy. Um, but as Indiana was undefeated, I started watching him more, and halfway through the year, he just fits what Halfley likes. He's a just pure penetration. He didn't make, like I said, his stats were average. He didn't make many tackles, but he was literally always in the backfield. Like when they played Ohio State, they kind of got their ass kicked, but he was the only defensive player that stood out. He was in the backfield, but there's just no flow behind him to fill. But yeah, CJ West, if you want to just a flyer on an explosive three tech that might hit, could be a three tech of the future, that's the route I would go. He's 6'2", 315. Um, just a pure disruptor. Just gets upfield, makes people cut off him. If your linebackers are good behind you, um, he's got a spot in the league, I think.
All right, well, let's move out to the edge. And for purposes, we're going to assume, and I think this is safe to assume, that Abdul Carter and Jalen Walker are not going to be there at 23 for the Packers to pick in the first round. So just looking at some edge thresholds, typically what Goody has drafted in the past. And of course, this is another interesting thing is do we know what Jeff Halfley prefers as an edge rusher? It's so early. I don't think we really know. So I think that could be intriguing as well. And some of these guys that we're maybe going to talk about aren't maybe typically in that Packers threshold. When I say Packers threshold, maybe just picture like Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith, Rashawn Gary, 6'4", 250, long arms, fairly athletic, 9.0 typically or above. That's usually what the Packers look at in drafting. I think there's a handful of guys that fit that. If you maybe go on every single, checklist of what the Packers go just with like production and the pass rush win rate and all these things, we could go on and on. It probably narrows down, but I'm just going to leave it very open. Like I mentioned, no Abdul Carter, no Jalen Walker. Those guys are gone. Mike, you mentioned Mason Graham. He's probably going to be gone in the top 10 as well. I know he's interior, but just looking at the edge guys that will be there in the back half of the first round, who is the guy that stands out to you the most that you would love to have opposite of Rashawn Gary? And either of you can start.
So I don't see like the size thing. I have James Pierce out of Tennessee. I have Mike Green out of Marshall. And the Senior Bowl thing. Mike keeps bringing up Mike Green out of Marshall just absolutely dominated the Senior Bowl. They just don't look like ends that Goody seems to want to pick. We talked about we don't know what Halfley wants to end, but I just don't even know if Goody gives a shit. I think Goody's gonna go the route he wants to go. I don't know if he actually takes into account what the coaches want much. Um, I love James Pierce. I love Mike Green. I'd take them both as a pass rusher. I think bringing them in on third down and then slowly develop into being able to defend the run would be awesome. But to me, the three guys that I would say that actually fit what Goody seems to like would be Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, Michael Williams out of Georgia, and then I'm going to take a flyer because I just think the Packers would do some shit like this, and I'd probably be okay with it if they traded back a little bit and took a Jack Sawyer out of Ohio State. That's actually probably where I would lean. Shamar Stewart has absolutely zero production. It just gives me flashbacks to Lucas Van Ness, and I'm not, you guys know how out I am on him. Michael Williams, if they're gonna stick, I'd be okay if they took him because his upside is so great. It's so hard to project these Georgia guys, and Goody obviously loves these Georgia guys because they just rotate so often. He doesn't have as many snaps. His size, 6'5", 265 is good. He's obviously a run defender first right now, so does not really help our pass rush situation, but you would think that he would develop into that. Solid athlete. But like I said, I'm gonna go with Jack Sawyer. Give me Jack Sawyer. Trade back into the 30s, trade whatever, whoever falls. Trade early in the second round. Give me Jack Sawyer just because he seems like a Packer guy. He's surprisingly athletic. I think he ran a 4.6 flat at 6'5", 260. You guys, I mean, everybody's seen it. They saw how State's run. They saw how important he was as a leader, a culture guy. So yeah, I just think he would fit that locker room. He plays his natural side is the opposite side of Rashawn Gary. The defense is right, offense is left. Gary's the opposite. So he just to me it seems like a match made in heaven. So that's who I would lean if they're gonna go edge. I'd rather him trade back and just take him at the end of the first round.
Yeah, I had Jack Sawyer as one of my top guys too. Um, Initially, he was kind of my first pick, but I kind of like that thinking that Riley's going with. Um, the more I was reading up on Mike Green, the more I liked him out of Marshall. I mean, 17 sacks last year. I mean, I don't care who you're playing against. That's legit. I mean, the knock against him was like, oh, he didn't play against consistent Big Four conference competition or whatever, but he still had multi-sack games against Virginia Tech, Appalachian State, Coastal Carolina, all legit competition. He's got a wrestling background. I mean, that shows up in his leverage and his hand usage. He's got great speed and bend around the edge. He's got a plethora of pass rush moves to keep defenders guessing. He'll set up tackles to um, do one thing and early in the game and then counter that later on in the game as he figures out their tendencies. One thing I did read about him is that he's been more of a 3-4 stand up rusher, which the Packers have now moved to that 4-3 hand in the dirt kind of pass rusher. I don't know how difficult that transition is. Riley, you could probably speak to that if how difficult that is or if it's not really an issue. I don't know.
I would think it wouldn't be an issue, but some guys are weird about that and love to stand. I mean, you still see Bretton Cox. Everybody else goes 3-point stance, like sprinter stance, and then Brenton Cox comes in the game when they do play him, and he stands up half the time. So and obviously, the Packers have shown that they don't give a shit if you produce on third down situations, but early down situations, it seems like they want their hand in the dirt. I don't think it would matter that much.
Yeah, I mean, and like Riley had said, I think Jack Sawyer was kind of one of my top guys too. But I would also, if he's also not available, I wouldn't mind going with his teammate JT Tuimoloau either. He's had some pretty solid seasons at Ohio State. He's 6'4", 265, put up 12 and a half sacks last year, 2 sacks in the national championship game. Comes up big in big moments. Um, He's really good at setting the edge in the run game. He's got a nice spin move. One of his weaknesses, though, he does need to get faster around the edge. He's a little slow there, so maybe a second round pick there too, if uh, Jack Sawyer or any of these other guys aren't available.
Yeah, I think another intriguing situation of what kind of edge rusher are you looking for? Are you looking for a guy that can play all three downs opposite of Rashawn Gary, or are you looking just for another situational guy that maybe is just a pass rushing specialist? Again, Goody typically likes to go with those project guys. So that's why I do think we see Shamar Stewart and Mikael Williams so often on some of these projections, just because they fit what Goody likes to do. He likes to see guys of what they can do maybe in 2 or 3 years compared to maybe what they did in college in that production, and that fits both of those two. Their physical profile is exactly what Goody likes to draft and what the Packers typically draft, but they just don't have a ton of production like Riley mentioned. So that's why I think we've seen those two quite a bit. Because I do think they have a lot of potential, but again, it's such a roll of the dice. You just don't know what you're going to get from those guys if they're going to reach their potential. Yeah, Mike Green definitely liked him a lot, and just dude just got a ton of moves, and he just knows how to win. One of those guys. One that could be intriguing. He does not fit the Packers' athletic profile whatsoever. Donovan Ezuraku is a pass rushing stud. Again, he's only 6'2", 247, so he is very small and very undersized for like a true edge rusher. He wouldn't play all three downs. He would probably just be a situational guy. He does have 34-inch arms, so that certainly helps with leverage against some of those bigger offensive linemen, but just watch him. I mean, the dude just knows how to win on the outside. 16 and a half sacks, 20 and a half tackles for losses in 2024, 61 total pressures. Again, a Boston College guy who came from Boston College. Jeff Hafley, Riley mentioned. Goody doesn't maybe listen to Jeff Hafley. I see if Jeff Hafley's in his ear about this one. I don't see it happening, but I think it's intriguing because there is some connections on the Packers coaching staff with Hafley, with the new defensive line coach or assistant defensive line coach. I don't even know how he says it. Vince Ogobas, something like that. He coached with him as well, so he has connections from his first 3 years of college with those two guys. They've seen him firsthand, and if Hafley likes him that much, I would not be surprised if he at least is in Goody's ear to look at this guy, because he just wins. He's a productive guy in college. The stats were there. Very undersized, so I think he could be very intriguing. He might not even be there. I think he's been rising up draft boards as well, and been seeing him going in the early 20s. James Pierce Jr., I also really like. I think he meets a lot of the Packers threshold, but I think he is more 6'5", 243, so a little thinner. He did have a top 30 draft visit as well. I don't know what the stats are for those pre-draft visits of Goody actually drafting them. I'm sure it's probably hit or miss by the year. But yeah, another guy that just knows how to get after the quarterback. So yeah, I think it's intriguing. I do think the best route is to trade out of the first round, and we'll get to the mock drafts next week. I don't know if any of these guys really make you better day one and are going to be true like needle movers, I guess, with just some of these prospects that we talked about. But maybe outside of the top round, first two rounds, are there any other mid-round sleepers or late-round sleepers that you guys really like that you could see maybe being projects or maybe being situational guys to kind of find their way into the rotation on the edge?
Yeah, it was tough to find a sleeper for me. Just looking at the athleticism of the guys that Goody would want, match with the size. The only one I found, and that's just because he's been somewhat consistent through 3 years. He contributed on special teams. Would be Fadil Diggs out of Syracuse, 6'4", 260. He's had 15 sacks through the last 3 years, so it's like literally 5 a year. Super long arms. I think he's blocked a couple of kicks I read. So just a solid athlete, consistent. It was tough to find a sleeper, and it's you kind of got to get one in the first two rounds, I think, if you're going to get one.
Yeah, I agree with Riley. The guy I kind of went sleeper on was Braden Swinson out of LSU, 6'4", 255. He did have 9 sacks this last year with LSU. Um, um, just kind of a great pursuit. I mean, he'll. What am I trying to say? I mean, he does. He's got a continuous motor. Like he'll run guys down behind the play. Just kind of. I love his effort. So Braden Swinson was kind of my sleeper pick here.
A guy that I've heard recently as well, just on some other podcasts, Tyler Barron out of Miami. Kind of meets a lot of the physical athletic threshold. 6'5", 260, ran a 4.6, 240. Great against the run. Okay rushing the passer, but I think he could be like a 3-down guy as well, and maybe a mid-round guy that you could bring in opposite of Rashawn Gary and kind of complement maybe some of the just those situational guys. Had some production, five and a half sacks, 11 tackles for losses in 2024. So a guy I had there as well. Any other defensive prospects outside of corner and the defensive line and edge that you could see the Packers either targeting or guys that you really like that you think would be good for the Packers and fit what they're trying to do?
Yeah, I think you could see the Packers if they fall in love with a linebacker taking them because I think Quay Walker. We talked about Devontae Wyatt if they're going to pick up his 5th year. Quay Walker's in the same boat. They're going to have to decide after this year if they're going to pick up his 5th-year option. They're going to let him walk. I think last year was by far Quay Walker's best year. His first couple, I was completely out on him. He brought me back a little bit this last year, but he does seem to get banged up at least once every year. His instincts are questionable, but Efley's defense, just letting his athleticism take over, has kind of helped him. So we'll see what step he takes this year. But if you are going to replace him, I think there's one sitting there primed in probably the second, third round. Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma. I'm sure we've all heard of him. 6'4", 240, so similar size. He ran a 4.52, so way better athlete than people thought. He is already a better run defender than Quay Walker. I don't care what anybody says. And he literally made his day blitzing, timing up stuff, all his highlights. So he literally can step in and do exactly what Hafley would want. I think he'd be a great pair with Cooper. So I talked myself into it today, literally just drafting him and whatever. Quay Walker, see ya, and just let Danny Stutzman and Cooper just run wild for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate that. I pretty much focused on corner and line and edge for the purpose of this podcast, but I could totally see them taking a flyer on a linebacker in one of those middle rounds. And yeah, Stutzman, I wouldn't hate that.
All right, a little over 2 weeks away. That's our defensive prospect preview. Offense was last week. Next week, we're going to have a little fun, put those two together, do a little mock draft, maybe talk about the draft in general. But that's all for football talk today. All right, now let's go into the final drive rankings. We're going to do a little bit different this week. No blind rankings, but we're still going to have some fun. So like Mike talked about at the beginning of the show, tonight was the Masters Champions Dinner, which is, Mike wants to talk about it a little bit, but basically the previous year's winner hosts all the champions from previous years and gets to pick what they're going to eat, gets to pick the menu. So what we're going to do, each of us have our own menu of if we won the Masters in an alternate universe, because it's got to be out there somewhere, right? There's got to be an alternate universe somewhere out there that one of us won the Masters, right? I would think. What would be our Masters Champions Dinner? So I think, at least for me, I did appetizer, a couple courses, and dessert. It's pretty open, but I just looked at Scotty Scheffler's this year, which looked fantastic, by the way. Very, very Scotty Scheffler looks like. But I'll just start us off here, and then Mike or Riley can go after, and we can kind of talk about it at the end. So here's my appetizers. It's going to be very Wisconsin and very me. Very fried as well. So Wisconsin cheese curds. Would have to have Wisconsin cheese curds in there, a little flavor of where I'm from, and not a lot of people know what cheese curds even are outside of the Midwest, so I feel like you would have to put cheese curds in there. Crab ragoons. Have to put crab ragoons in there. They're so bad for you, but they're just delicious. Everyone would just chomp on those crab ragoons waiting for the main course, and then bacon-wrapped jalapeno poppers. Oh, love them. I think that would be a nice little mix with those three. So cheese curds, crab ragoons, bacon wrapped jalapeno poppers. My first course, love it. French onion soup. God, good French onion soup with the melted cheese over top of the bowl. Give me all of that. I think that's a good way to start off my main course, which is going to be a choice of either beef tips or roasted chicken. I know beef tips were at my wedding. Delicious. Roasted chicken. Love roasted chicken. I would probably have both of them, but if I had to do a choice, I don't know. That'd be tough. Probably beef tips. Along with it on the sides, mashed potatoes and gravy, macaroni and cheese, and some steamed vegetables. All right, we're going to wrap it all up for dessert. Chocolate banana cream pie. Good luck beating that spread. I don't care who goes next, but that's a tough one to follow.
All right, I can go next. All right, appetizers. I wanted to do giant pretzels, but that's just kind of probably weird. Everybody ripping off the same pretzels. So I wanted pretzel bites. Give me some beer cheese. Give me some nacho cheese. Give me some honey mustard on the platter. Whatever way you want to go to dip it. I just that's for me. I love pretzels. That's my weakness. Also gonna have some. Also go the bacon wrapped route like Colin did, but I'm gonna wrap up some little sausages with a brown sugar drizzle. You get that little sweetness on it as well. And then obviously you just got to have some chips, salsa, queso, and guac. Those are my three appetizers. Pretzel bites with all three options. Bacon wrapped sausages with the brown sugar drizzle, and then chips, guac, queso, salsa, platter, just roaming around. Free dinner. I got three things everybody's gonna get. Obviously, we're just gonna go salad. Any toppings you want, any dressing you want, just keep it fresh. Act like we're gonna be healthy. Then we're gonna go. Anybody's ever been to like a Japanese like hibachi place? They do the Asian style like fried shrimp, on the grill, and you get like the yummy sauce stuff like that. You can do that. You can do soy sauce. You can do butter. So everybody's gonna get however many pieces of that they want, and then we're gonna get some grilled garlic bread. Some legit bread. Throw some butter on there, a little garlic seasoning on the grill. Flip it off. Boom. Actual dinner. I got two things. I got ribeye steaks. And I got chicken breast. So I don't care what people prefer. Both are there. I also got mashed potatoes. Love mashed potatoes. I don't care if you want gravy. You can throw cheese on it, bacon, whatever. All available. And then we're gonna go. I always make this for my one family side stuff is green beans topped with bacon. You bake it and you put brown sugar on that. Just more unhealthy sugar. It coats it all. So unhealthy green beans. And then for dessert, I'm gonna keep it basic. I was just thinking, what would I want? And I just kept thinking of Cold Stone. Cold Stone Creamery sounds so good to me. So I was like, let's just do a generic sundae bar. Give me like 8 different kinds of ice cream and any toppings you want, and you guys can run wild with it.
All right. That leaves me. All right. So my appetizers are going to be grilled cheese dippers. We're going to have some cheddar, Gruyere, provolone, Boursin cheese in those grilled cheese dippers with a vodka marinara sauce. Then we're going to do some spinach artichoke dip as well. That's our appetizers. Our first course will be a salad and roasted potato cheddar or French onion soup and breadsticks. Our main course will be a Kobe Wagyu sirloin filet with crab legs with melted butter, so a little surf and turf for you. Some seasoned asparagus and creamy garlic mashed potatoes. For dessert, we're going to do a giant warm chocolate chip cookie in a skillet. We're going to throw a scoop of ice cream on top of that. I think that totally beats Collins.
That's such a Schneider dessert too. Between you and Matt, you guys both like your chocolate chip cookies. I think that are the big ones too in the skillet. I like it though. It does sound
100%.
good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my big takeaway is I'm hungry now. I might have to have a late night snack after that. But all right, well, Mike, you're gonna get those up on social media, and everyone can comment and vote and um, even tell us your own. What would be your Masters Champions dinner as well? But I think it was a lot of good choices. Some of what you guys said I wouldn't even have thought of. A lot of A lot of good of like kind of the family style, and you even got the surf and turf. I wouldn't even have thought of either of that. So, all right, well, let's kind of segue into the Masters. Mike, I know you wanted to talk about it a little bit. I think you're probably going to talk the most about the preview. Um, I'm just going to get right into it, and then I'll open up to Riley, and then we'll end with Mike here. The favorites. I think it's going to be a lot of the big names thrown around. Scotty Scheffler, I think, is probably a favorite almost at any tournament that he goes to, especially majors. I am going to go, though, with Roy McIlroy. I think he finally ends his major drought. I thought he was awesome in season 3 of Full Swing. I know he got a couple of the episodes. If either of you have watched that or any of the viewers, very very good. Docu series on Netflix, following around all the pro golfers. Roy's just due for one. He's been so close, and I know he's kind of fell apart on Sunday at a couple different majors in recent years, but he's still one of the best golfers in the world. So I know it's not. It's kind of like a number 1 seed pick in March Madness, but I'm gonna go with Roy McIlroy. I think he's gonna finally end his major drought and get one.
I'm gonna go with Brooks Koepka because I just know he talks shit. So I don't. I do not like golf. So I just know like the top guys' names and who does stuff. So I'll go with Brooks Koepka because he's a shit talker, and I'll just ride with him.
Yeah, Brooksy's always decent pick at the majors. I mean, that's basically what he plays for is the majors. I mean, it's hard to bet against pick against Scotty Scheffler. I mean, dude's just a machine out there. Just I don't know if his pulse ever changes. I haven't seen the betting odds for who the favorites are in this tournament, but I have to imagine, like Colin, you said, Scotty's probably the favorite. Um, One guy I think to keep an eye on is Ludwig Ober. I think he's a young rising star on the PGA Tour. Another guy I would keep an eye on is Xander Schauffele. Last year he got that major monkey off his back, and he actually took home 2 of them. Ironically, Scotty won all those tournaments, but Xander's the one who won 2 majors. He had a rib injury earlier this year, so he hasn't been playing quite as much. But I think that would be great to see him put a green jacket on. Um, yeah, I mean, I can't wait. I
Yeah.
love the Masters.
Bryson
It's a
DeChambeau
it
as well.
Yeah, Bryson would be fun to watch too. Get his first Masters.
His
Um,
turnaround too has been awesome. Just even watching it on Full Swing, and he's very
mhm.
very out there with what he kind of went through and whatnot, and he's starting to play pretty good golf as well. So at least the last couple of years.
I mean, gosh, I just love Masters Week. Getting down there is an absolute bucket list item for me. Just to see the course, and even if it's for a practice round, I wouldn't care. I would love to walk around Augusta National and see what it's all about.
All right, so that kind of leads to got a couple just quick fire questions for both of you. Maybe mainly for Mike, but Riley, you can definitely chime in as well. Golf related, in honor of the Masters. Um, all right. So if you were teeing up on Thursday in round 1, but all you had to do was putt, so someone could throw your ball
Oh boy,
anywhere on the green where you start every single hole. All you had to do was putt all 18 holes. Par is 72. What do you shoot?
I don't know if I follow. I don't know if I understand the question
All you
totally.
have to do is putt. You don't have to drive. You don't have to hit irons. Every single hole, you're going to start on the green. All you got to do is putt until you make it. But it is still the Masters. It is still the intensity. What would you shoot if par is 72? What are you going to shoot?
I think I could. I think if I only had to putt, I'd shoot par.
You shoot
Yeah,
I think
72?
I get 72. Yeah.
72?
eight. If I 3 putt every hole, 18 times 3 is 54.
You're
Yeah,
you're
I mean
shooting a
even
54?
I think I could get below 72.
All right, so you're shooting under.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right, next question I have. Last question. We're in Sunday. Tiger Woods is in his prime. All right? He's in the final group with you. He's in the group behind you. He's about to tee off at 18. You're about 50 yards out from the green. All right, Tiger is on your tail. He's in second. He's teeing off. How many strokes do you think you need to be up to feel comfortable to win and pull it out? Because Tiger's
Oh
probably
boy.
going 4. He's probably for sure going 4 on that final horn, maybe even a 3. What do you think you need to be
Yeah.
up 50 yards out to feel comfortable to
Are we
win? And pressure,
now
everything.
Tiger, or are we
Prime Tiger.
are we talking about prime? Oh, okay,
Prime
prime
Tiger.
Tiger. 3.
Yeah, I mean,
shots up.
lead.
I was going to say 4 or 5. Just because I don't think, from what I've heard and read about Augusta National, there's no flat spot on that course. Everything's above your feet, below your feet. The greens, you don't get a flat putt anywhere. Yeah, I think I need
plus
at
it's
least.
Sunday in the Masters, and you have Tiger in his red behind you. You're gonna be shitting your pants. Like your first shot is
Whatever.
100% either getting chunked or going over. I know that. I would probably need at least a 3 or 4 stroke lead. I would say 4 as well.
Yeah.
I think I would feel safe because I can't even imagine like what putting feels like. My hands would be shaking. I would probably step away like 4 or 5 times each putt. Like, yeah, just a couple good questions. So, all right,
I like
Masters.
those.
Masters this weekend. We just did our Masters Champions dinner. Like I said, Mike's gonna have those posted, I think, on both X and Facebook. Make sure you follow, comment on both of those platforms. Whatever you listen to your podcasts on, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, make sure you interact with us, like us, follow, share. We want to get out to as many people as possible. Another good episode, boys. Talked a little college basketball, some football on the defensive side, and ending with the little Masters. Who would have thought? Riley had a smile on his face the entire time. We both saw it, and he was excited to talk about it. Next week, going to be another fun episode as well. We're going to plan a little bit, see how we're going to do the mock draft, but you won't want to miss that one. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Mike Schneider, Riley Ashe, Colin Telbert. Have a good night. We'll see you next week.
Love you guys.